Hey everyone, today we're going to have a look at how to build infinite pagination in Livewire. Infinite pagination is where we can display a list of items such as the users list I have here, and rather than having next or previous buttons like in normal pagination, we instead have a show more button that adds more users to the end of the list. So I have a list of 10 users here, and every time we click the show more button, 10 more users will be added to the end of our list. Let me reset the project and let's get started. I have seeded 1,000 users to the database and I'm currently displaying all of them in our list here. So our first thing to do will be to reduce our list down to only displaying 10 users. So if we open up our users list page, we can see we're currently getting all the users from the database. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a public property called count and we're going to set it to 10. Then we will add the limit to our users query and pass in this count. And if we refresh, we can see our users list has been limited to 10 users. Our next step is to set up our show more button at the bottom of our list. If we go to our users list page blade view, I've already set up a show more button here ready to go, so I'll just uncomment it. And if we refresh, we can see our button has appeared. But our button doesn't do anything, so let's get that working. So on our button, we'll add a wire click equals, and we're going to call the show more action. So in our users list class, we'll add a show more method, and we'll also add a new public property called per page, which we'll also set to 10. So every time the show more method is run, we're going to increase this count by this per page. So what that means is to start with, count will be 10, then we click the button and count will be increased by 10, so it'll be 20, and then 30, etc. So if we save that and refresh, if we click our show more button, we can see we now have infinite pagination working. But there's one issue with this. If I refresh, and if we check out debug bar and investigate the query, we can see our users are limited to 10, and there's currently 10 user models being loaded. But when we click the show more button, we can see there's now 20 user models being loaded, and our query is limited to 20. And every time we click the show more button, we'll see our limit is increasing and the total number of users being loaded is increasing. Now, for a simple users list like this could be perfectly fine, but there is a more performant way to do this using nested components. So let's have a look at that. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a nested component that contains each group of 10 users in it. And every time we click the show more button, we're going to add another nested component to the page which has the next group of 10 users. So to do this, we need to set up a new component. We'll run php artisan livewire make, and we'll call this users group. Then we will move our users query off our users list component and into our users group component and paste it in here. We'll need to import our user model, and we also need to set up two public properties. The first one will be called per page, and the second one will be called offset. Last thing we need to do is change our limit from this count to this per page and add offset to our query and pass in this offset. Now, if we go to our users list page blade view, we can actually remove the for each from here and move it into our users group blade view. So we'll just paste that in here. The last step is back in our users list blade view, we now need to add our nested components. To do this, we'll create a for tag and set up an offset variable of equal to 0. And what we're going to do is we're going to increase the offset by our per page amount until it gets to our total count. So we'll say offset is less than count. then we'll increase the offset by the per page. And we'll close our for tag. Finally, we'll add our Livewire nested component in here using Livewire, users-group. And if you remember, we set up the per page and offset properties on this component. So we just need to pass them in now. So we'll pass in per page equals per page. And we'll also pass in offset equals offset. We also need to add a wire key to the nested component, which is essential whenever you're using loops in Livewire. So we'll set up a wire key, and it's best practice when setting up a wire key to pass in some context and a unique way to identify it. So I'll use users-group and I'll pass in the offset here. What this means is the first one will have users-group-0, the second one will be users-group-10, etc. And if we close our tag and save, we should be ready to go. If we refresh in the browser, we can see though our styling has disappeared. Let's just quickly fix that now. If we go to our users group blade view, we can just add the divide Y and divide gray 300 classes to this div here. If we save and refresh, we can see our styling has come back. So in theory, everything should be ready to go. So if we click show more, we can see our users are being added to the end of our list, just as we expected. Now, if we check out debug bar, we can have a look and see currently is 10 users being loaded. And this time our query has a limit of 10 and an offset of 0. So if we click show more, we can see our offset changes to 10, and there's still only 10 user models loaded. So if I keep clicking show more, we can see there's only 10 user models loaded each time, and our offset keeps increasing. This is exactly what we want. And that's it. That's how to build infinite pagination in Livewire.